Welcome to One EXP CultureCast, the official podcast of eXp Realty's primary diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative, One EXP. I'm your host and the leader of eXp's DEI efforts, Cody Gilkeson. Here, we explore the unique stories, challenges, and triumphs of individuals who are shaping the culture of eXp Realty. Each episode, we'll connect with inspiring guests who share their personal journeys and insights, giving us a window into their experiences and the impact they're making. Together, we'll celebrate the diverse voices that make up the cultural fabric of eXp. Together, we'll learn as stories of growth and resilience take center stage. This is One EXP CultureCast, the bi-weekly podcast about what makes us us. Hey everybody, and welcome. We are finally here. Season 3, episode 1. If you're keeping tally of the episodes, this is episode 40 of the CultureCast. And I am thrilled and a little shocked that we haven't had you before, but I have Cameron Cisneros here with us today. Welcome, Cameron.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here, and you're right. It's about time. We've done so much together that I'm glad that we're officially on this podcast having a conversation.
Yeah, we really truly have gone through a lot of stuff together. We have a really similar sort of story at eXp, even though I'm not an agent. So I'm excited to dive in and let people get to know you a little bit because you're one of my favorites at One EXP. I say that to a lot of people, but I mean it. How about you?
Thank you. You are too for me.
Oh, gosh. So, Camryn, give us a little bit of the brief bio. So, who are you? Where do you work at eXp? What are you doing?
Absolutely. I'm Cameron Cisneros. I'm co-chair of the Pride Network. I'm also in transactions and leadership within eXp. I'm also an eXp agent. I've been here for about 3 years now, and prior to, I served a contract in the military. That's what brought me to Oklahoma. I am originally from New Jersey, but I did my contract. I landed here in Oklahoma. And then once I got out, I jumped 2 feet into real estate, and that's how I got here.
I always wondered how someone with a Jersey accent landed in Oklahoma.
Right?
Every time you tell me you're from Oklahoma, I'm like, you don't sound like Oklahoma.
No, not at all.
But to be fair, I rarely sound like Georgia either. But yeah.
Right.
Tequilas and maybe, or the right kind of food in front of me. Or when I'm with my family, the accent really comes out. We'll put it that way.
Yes. No. I come back from New Jersey back to Oklahoma, and I'm like, oh my God, it's very different out here.
Yeah. I mean, where's the shore in Oklahoma?
Literally, no lakes, no natural lakes here.
Can you even do gym tan laundry in Oklahoma effectively? I mean, I don't know.
I refuse to eat seafood here. I'm like, I don't know where it comes from. We're landlocked. So I don't need, you have the best steak here though. Just not seafood.
I believe that. I've actually never been to Oklahoma. I only went to Texas for the first time last year. But
they're similar.
Yeah, right. I enjoy Texas actually. So, all right, let's jump in. So, as co-chair of the Pride Network, the big marquee thing this year was you grew Pride Network from 1,000 members to, I looked this morning, it's over 11,000. What strategies or initiatives were key to helping that number grow?
Jumping into being a co-chair for Pride Network, there were 2 big things that I saw for an opportunity of growth. One was with 90,000 people, we only had 1,000, members in Pride. And that was because 1, people didn't know who we were. And 2, the people that knew who we were didn't know the value that they could get out of joining Pride Network. They were like, I don't understand the point. I know that there's some kind of LGBTQ plus community, but I don't see a point. So it was either they didn't know who we were, or they knew and they didn't understand what the reason would be why they should join and be an ally and advocate for the community. And so to sum it up, it was synergy and intersectionality. Synergizing with the existing 14 One EXP groups. I was already a part of 5 of them with Military Network, Women's Impact, Young Professionals, EXP Latino, and Pride. So out of the existing ones I already had involvement in, I said, why don't we synergize together and empower our mission and make it something so much bigger than it's ever been. And that's how we grew so fast, was encouraging people to join us and to create opportunities for other people. So now we're at a point where people know who we are. They understand the value. One of the big things right now that we're facing is queer migration, especially from a place like Oklahoma. I'm experiencing it on a regular, people wanting to flee the states where they don't feel welcome. And so Pride Network has really fostered in a safe, inclusive environment, especially those that are producing agents now have a resource and a tool set in their back pocket. So now that they can offset and render a value to their clients and to general members of the public, while also funding a community for themselves. So it's been really cool, but that's how we've grown it. I mean, we just grew that extra 1,000 within the last 3.5 weeks. So I'm really excited for 2025.
That is really, really exciting. Let's take a break here for a second and talk a little bit about that queer migration thing too, because a lot of you frequent viewers know this about me, but I run a local nonprofit here in my little bitty town that we live in called Danville, Illinois, and Illinois is a major sanctuary state for LGBTQ folks that want to go somewhere where they know that their rights are enshrined, essentially. And we have been seeing a lot of that. I mean, and this is me just putting this out to folks who want to do something similar or think about doing something similar. The options that our group had to grow its membership were so limited before this sort of migration began in earnest last year. And since then, I mean, I look around at my nonprofit and I see all these people that I've formed bonds and friendships and relationships with. And I look at the numbers, and what the numbers tell me is the people who needed the resource the most were trans or non-binary, or immigrants from another state.
Yeah.
I think on our core membership that come to every single one of our events, probably 80% did not live in the city until the last couple of years.
Wow.
Didn't live in this state until the last couple of years. We have people that come from Georgia and Louisiana and South Carolina and, just all over the place. And we all just happen to land here at the same time. So what I'm telling you is this: if you live in one of those states, be prepared and open your arms. And now might be the time. If you always thought, if I do something for my community, nobody's going to show up, this is the point in time where they might, if you're in one of those sanctuary states. And on the flip side of that, maybe now's the time to do it in one of the states that people are leaving, so that you can convince people there are still people here who have your back and will fight for you, right?
Absolutely.
If you would like your community to not run away to Illinois.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so you have a number of leadership roles, right? So I want to know, how do you balance the leadership roles that you have at Pride Network, at NAREP for Oklahoma City, for transactions? How do you stay true to yourself and foster inclusivity doing all of that?
I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I do wish I could clone myself, because it is a lot of moving parts and pieces, but I've come to the quick realization that time is my most valuable asset. It's the one thing I could never get back, and it is the most valuable thing I can offer. So I try to be very conscientious and intentional about the time that I'm allocating. So time blocking has really been pivotal, because if I don't time block, I'm with ADHD. I'll be everywhere at 50 things at once.
Yeah.
So I really when I'm in transactions, that is my main focus. I have the blinders on. That's my thing.
Gotta earn the paycheck.
Right. Once I clock out, it's boom, I'm going to allocate a couple hours towards Pride, then a couple hours towards NAREP. And I keep my calendar full, because I think the worst thing is blank space on a calendar. So I always try to keep myself busy. So there'll be days that I allocate just to Pride after work or just to NAREP. It just depends on what is really happening, but being very conscientious and also having a team that I could delegate things too. So during those times where maybe I'm focused on another project, I still got a team that I can rely on and appoint, okay, I need you to do this, this, and this. Let's regroup and execute the next project going forward.
Oh yeah, delegation is so important.
Yeah.
I was in that boat for a minute at the onset of the DEI team here in EXP about 3 years ago, when I felt like all I wanted was a clone of myself. And that, if I really follow that rabbit hole down, if there were another Cody, it would only end in one of our death, right? We would not get along, right? So eventually I had to find power in being able to delegate and find the right people for my circle who I can trust to delegate to, that know things that I don't, right?
100%.
So I would take Morgan over a clone of me 100% of the time, right? Because I found someone who speaks my language and understands my crazy, and sometimes that's all you need to be able to do your work effectively, is have somebody that you trust that is different from you in all the right ways. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I hand her the stuff that I'm not great at, and she gives me back something that I wouldn't have thought of. You know what I mean? So that's diversity is so important when you're talking about the people you delegate to.
I agree. Yeah. One of the things I found out this year that I'm really not good at is Canva. Don't give me no Canva. Like, I'm good at a lot of things, but not the graphic design department. That I 100% will delegate that to my counterparts, because I could never, even if
that's fair. Everybody has their thing. I'm lucky to say that I am really good at final edits on Canva, maybe not so good at starting.
Right.
So
yeah.
Me and Morgan counterbalance each other quite a bit there. I ask her to do stuff in Canva that I'm not good at. And if it's something that I think that I can handle, I'll do it. But I always ask her for, can you look at this and make sure it doesn't look wonky? And she does the same for me. And we got each other's back that way. It's a nice relationship that we have there. Shout out to Morgan in the backstage.
We love you.
We couldn't do it without you. Okay, so let's talk about growing up, Camryn. Right? You share a little bit about your upbringing and the journey to coming to terms with your queer identity, and then how did this shape your approach towards leadership and advocacy?
Yeah, growing up in New Jersey, I was very fortunate to be a part of the LGBTQ plus community in the state that I grew up in, for sure. I feel like I created my own closet growing up, because I've always looked and dressed the way that I have, from as early as I can remember to now. And my mom knew, like, from 8 to 11, like, she knew I was gay. I was in denial. I was like, no, I'm not. And I would try to bring home boyfriends. And I was really like, I think a part of me felt ashamed that I didn't feel like I fit the criteria of what it meant to be a woman. I always felt a struggle with my own femininity. And so I felt very shameful and I almost wanted to prove them wrong, growing up, until, I think it was around like 16 years old. I was like, oh yeah, I have this boyfriend. They knew it was not my boyfriend. And I kept hanging out with one specific individual who was a woman, who was someone I was seeing. And then that's when I was like, okay, like, I really need to come to terms with myself in order to really be who I am and be happy. And so that was very pivotal. So, I mean, I didn't have this like grand coming out story. They were like, we knew. And I was like, oh, okay. But it really shaped my leadership, because if I couldn't be unapologetically myself, there is no way that I can offset and render an irreplaceable value to anybody. I had to fill up my own cup first. And I always say that authenticity is the highest form of currency that I could ever render, and there were times where I tried to dress as the criteria of what I thought a woman should dress like. And believe it or not, I got made fun of more wearing dresses, because they were like, you don't look like you fit that. And I was like, guys, I'm like just trying to fit in. And it almost drew more attention to myself than just letting that go and letting those expectations go and say, you know what, like, this is who I am. This is how I want to dress. And this is how I want to be. And I'm very comfortable, at least now, in the femininity that I do have. Whereas before I really did struggle with that. So it helped me a lot growing up.
Yeah, I love that. I love what you said about creating your own closet as a kid, But that's all our mental stuff of like people don't understand. A lot of queer kids think even if they're in an accepting household, and objectively they could see that it's an accepting household and it wouldn't be a big deal if they came out. We still have that feeling born into us that revealing this is catastrophe, right?
Yeah.
There's a catastrophe that we'll have to get through. So dipping your toes into expressing yourself in an authentic way is not as easy as it sounds, right? I do believe that despite what the media may tell you about public opinion about queer people and trans people, I do feel like it's a better environment still today now than it was when we were growing up. To have a likelihood that your parents won't reject you and throw you out. That being said, it still happens.
Right? Yeah, 100%.
I think my story is really similar in that I tried really hard to be masculine. I tried really, really hard, and it never really fit for me. And lots of people look at me today and they think, you look like a dude, you talk like a dude, you're a pretty masculine guy. But that's, honey, behind the mask, it's nothing but sequins and glitter. You know what I mean? Right. Behind the mask, lives a person who looks in the mirror and sees Beyonce sometimes.
Right.
You know what
yes.
I mean? That's not me saying that I'm non-binary or have a trans identity. I'm not claiming any of that stuff. But when I look in the mirror, never once have I seen John Wayne.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or like Clint Eastwood or somebody that is that pinnacle of masculine. It's just not me.
Yeah.
Right. So I went through an unfortunate phase in middle school. I'm hoping nobody's around that has the capability to dig up middle school yearbooks. But I went through a period in middle school where I was like working on my grandparents' farm and wearing overalls and a cowboy hat and cowboy boots to school every day.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Which was too far, because even down south, kids don't dress like that at school. But I tried so hard to course correct what I saw as the error of my femininity, right?
Yeah.
To be someone who, well, that guy could never be queer. He cleans horse crap every morning.
Right.
But yeah, once I finally came to terms with my queer identity, the truth of the matter is I knew unequivocally since I was 8. I knew for sure, without a doubt, this is something I am. And it was the struggle then was, how do I change this? Right.
100%. Yeah.
Which, as anybody who is queer, who has gone through the process of trying to change themselves, especially as a kid by themselves, navigating that, it's not possible.
No.
Right. It's not possible. That may sound like a controversial statement to people that believe that you can pray it away or that it can go away or it's a phase or whatever, blah, blah, blah. I can tell you unequivocally, there was no hope for me to change.
Literally none. No. I tried praying the gay away for a very long time.
Yeah. I was a youth leader, at a Baptist church. I believed very seriously that if I didn't change, that I was going to die and go to hell.
Yeah. Right. No, 100%. Yep. I felt the same ways as well.
It is what it is. I didn't have such a accepting family, right? So then it was, once I came out and I realized who I was, it was survive until you can get to college. Yeah. And then I went hog wild. Super gay, the gayest, right? You know what I mean? Yeah. Got away from my family and it was dialed up to 12 where no man should ever be. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. That's exactly what me too. As soon as I got out, because I had very long hair growing up. So as soon as I was 18 and I was out, I shaved it, and then I am the person I am today. I really think I embrace
and that's, you know, I think it's something that people who want to understand the queer community better, which I hope is something that you get from watching an episode with the two of us, is realize that most of us have a delayed childhood, right? We go through the motions of a normal childhood, but we don't get to experience like that middle school, like, boys, you know, like we don't get to do all of that until we are out and we are free and their shackles are off. And for a lot of people, that's not until they're in college, or more and more until they're in their 40s. You know what I mean? A lot of people are waiting. But then once they finally find that freedom, gay people need to be excused for the fact that there will be a period of months or years where they go a little crazy.
Yep.
And they have to rein it in with grace, and you cannot help them rein it in. They have to come to that realization on their own, right? There's a song by a band that I like called AJR that has a lyric that says, they always told us we could be different, but nobody told me I could go too far.
Yes.
I went, oh, so far.
Right.
And what you see now is the version of me where I can still be myself, but still be palatable to people. Because sometimes if you're like me and your gay delayed childhood is later in life, then that person is not someone that anybody wants to be around but me, right? So, you know, see him at the bar, have fun at the bar, but you don't, you know, that's a stray dog you don't take home. You know what I mean?
Right.
Oh, but anyway, let's so tell me about, you mentioned briefly, and I want to get back into that, but your service and you as a military veteran, how did serving influence your perspective on diversity, on queer identity, on all of that?
It was, so I did 3 years. I did one contract in the military as a truck driver. And I was one of 2 females in a unit, a battalion of about 170 people. And so being in such a male predominant environment, I was almost a fly on the wall to a lot of the conversations that were being held, you know, just men being what they say, men being men, boys being boys. There was no diversity and inclusion there at all. It just didn't exist. You know, they really didn't see value in it, really. And so it did make it really hard being not only just a woman, but a queer woman in the military, where you're in a male predominant environment. I mean, even the bathrooms, we call them latrines, even the bathrooms that we had urinals in them. Like, we didn't have there was nothing made for women in the military. The bunks that we stayed in were still from the ones from World War. Even the equipment that they all issued us, they didn't have women designed equipment, you know, undergarments, clothing. It was either unisex or men. So there was
so
no.
Would you say it was hard to even dig deep enough to find a struggle about being queer because it was already such a struggle to be a woman?
Yes,
Wow.
100%. And women's voices just didn't have the same kind of value in that environment. There were, and I'm very lucky I came out unscathed, but I've been a witness to a lot of verbal abuse, physical abuse, assault by men. And because of just the leadership structure there, everything is at the discretion of what your commander says. So it's not like a civilian where you commit a crime, you get a punishment, right? In the military, you could commit the same crime. 2 people could. And if you are buddies with the commander, you can get off on a verbal warning while the other person can get full prosecution. And so there were a lot of women with stories that were being muzzled because, the right person knew what to say, how to say it. And so it really made me passionate about DEI and being inclusive and being a voice for the women in this community, because there's so many. Vanessa Gillens was a huge case in Fort Hood, and actually the roommate that I served with in Lawton was friends with Vanessa Gillens, and the girl Vanessa FaceTimed my roommate days before she went missing and told her about her story and how she felt uncomfortable by her leadership and the things that were happening to her. My roommate advised she needs to go report it again. After that, she was then discovered deceased 28 days later on that military installation. And the person that they did try to prosecute, they didn't, because they wound up taking their own life. And they wound up trying to revoke all the benefits for Vanessa because it took them 30 days to find her. So they classified her as AWOL. And so when you're classified as AWOL, that's like a dishonorable discharge. And then they found her. So obviously they did sue and got everything the family did. But that is one of hundreds of stories that don't get publicized. And she is one woman that really did try to have a voice and wound up no longer with us in this world. So I just think that it's so important to understand the severity of the things that happen behind closed doors. I'm very grateful I went to military. It taught me a lot. It really did. I'm very grateful for the time that I spent, got me out of my house. It taught me life lessons and to be on my own. And now I have a VA loan that has been a lifesaver for me, becoming a homeowner. But there are so many voices and stories that go unheard. And I think it's very important now as a civilian that I advocate for those voices, because I still hear stories to this day of the things that happen. So, it did really shape how I view DEI and what I do to advocate for women.
That's really incredible. And it's something that, just because the stories get sort of lost in the shuffle with the news cycles in this day and age,
Right.
Something grabs the headline and it's so huge that anything else, and the media does decide what we see and hear, right? So there is a piece of that too. But it's, it's interesting. I wasn't expecting to hear that the military is still, in this day and age, this long into women being able to serve in the military, still like that for women.
100%. Yeah. I was surprised too when I came in. I was like, okay, I'm coming in. I've got the short hair. I think like I'm a little rough. I think I might be able to do this. And, the physical part was easy. It was the emotional, it was the mental part, I constantly got misgendered in the military by my drill sergeants. And then they would be like, well, what do you expect? Look at what you look like, just comments like that I just had to brace. And there was nothing I could say or do, because you are not subject to civilian law. It is so different. If they don't like you, they could essentially do whatever they want. And that's how it is what it is. Even before my first 3 weeks in boot camp, I had a woman who I was friends with, we were buddies, battle buddies, have you. She had beef with somebody in her battalion, something stupid. That woman accused her and me of having like a relationship with each other. Swear we did not. I swear we did not. And they let that girl off with a verbal warning, and they fully prosecuted me. You would think it takes two to tango, right? You would think. And when I mean prosecute, they gave me an Article 15, and then they took my money away for like a couple months. I got paid $7 for 2 months for something I didn't even do. And you would think that if we were both guilty of having a relationship, we would both get the same punishment. She got a verbal warning. I got fully prosecuted, and I'll never forget the leadership dude. One of the senior sergeants told me, he was like, just give me a reason, and I want you out of here. I don't want you here. Just give me another reason, and I'll get you out. And I took that as like, I was like, you know what? No, I'm going to prove y'all wrong. I'm going to fight this. Y'all are just trying to mentally break me down, because that's what they do in the military. It's what I went into that knowing.
Right.
And so I picked myself up. They did find that I wasn't guilty, and they did wind up fixing it, but it took like 4 months of having to battle that, consistently, and finding people that would believe me and take my side, and on the basis that she got a verbal warning, and then I got, I'm like, how does that make sense?
Why do you think it was you that got it heavier handed? Is it
the way I look?
The way you look,
100% the way I look. Yeah. Because I look gay, right? And so it was very easy to say, well, she's a queer woman in the battalion, so what are you doing, having
be a rule breaker, predator, whatever they want to label you, because that's
right.
That's
so it was a rough
story. You had to go through that.
Yeah. But I mean, it wound up, I got out of there and things did get better, in that sense of it. But 3 weeks going into it at 18 years old, like I was just kind of like stunned. It's like, oh my God, like what is happening? You know what I mean? And that was my first real experience of like prejudice, like someone being prejudiced because of how I look. Because even my truth wasn't their truth. And that's what they told me. They're like, that's your truth, but this is our truth. And so that's when I realized, I was like, oh my goodness, like, no, this is real. Like, this is very real. And it's just not spoken about enough,
Well, I applaud you for shining a light on it. That's, can't have been easy to go through. And I hope that people can take this story and realize the struggles that a queer person would have or even a perceived queer person could have in the military. Yeah, and that sentiment is going around, unfortunately. It's kind of getting worse. The torches are out to comfort queer folks again.
Yeah.
Particularly for trans and non-binary folks, or people that don't fit into the mold that people think to be societally acceptable, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about pivotal moments or individuals that helped you embrace your identity.
Yeah.
Any specific events or people that really helped you get there?
I would say, obviously coming out of the military, like when I went in, I thought this was my end goal. This was my end game. I served a year I did a year in college, right? Flunked out. I did horrible. I am going to lie to you. And so that's when I was like, I shaved my head, went to the military. I was like, you know what? No, this is it for me. Like this is my answer. I found my way, my purpose. And when I get out of here, I might just do law enforcement. And obviously, due to my experiences after my contract, once I finished my contract, I felt like really, really defeated. Like really defeated. I was like, man, I sucked at college. I did not like the military. That's not what I want my life to look like. Jumped 2 feet into being a civilian, and I got like a warehouse job, and that I hit my breaking point very quickly. It's very, very laborious work. I was getting up at 3 a.m., work by 4 a.m., home by 5 p.m. They rinse and repeat. And honestly, it got to the point where I'd wake up with tears in my eyes because I was like, I don't want to go to work. This is horrible.
Yeah.
And so I one morning, I made a very spontaneous decision to put my lanyard down and leave. And I just left. Then I was like, you know what? I got to do something with my life. And so that was real estate for me. That's how I got into it. I was 6 months into being a civilian, and I still did not like where I was. And I was like, I need to use my brain to like make a living and sustainable lifestyle, not my body, because my body can only last me for so long. If I'm doing strenuous work at a warehouse, what is my health going to look like in 10 years?
Yeah, it's bad when you start a career that way, because a whole career like that, you're not going to enjoy your retirement. Yeah.
No, not at all. And there was zero security in what I was doing either. And so I'd say the most pivotal moment for me was after years of continuously being like let down, was coming to EXP. You're one of the most pivotal relationships that I've had. You and Jessica Nieto are like the first two that I think of in that sense. Cause I came to you guys with nothing. I mean, I was renting an apartment for $500 a month. I was going through a divorce at the time at a very young age. I was 21. And you guys saw something in me that I had yet to see in myself. And that was really important. I finally, for the first time, had people that were like, I see you, I hear you, and I believe in you. You know, you're worth something to us. And I never felt that in my life. And so that, with all the pain of what I was carrying coming into the company and being so unhappy with where I was, that opened the floodgates for opportunity, because I was like, you know what? I've got nothing to lose at this point. I'm going through a divorce. I already left the military. I haven't had an income in 8 months. I was like, what now? Right. And so I jumped 2 feet in, and y'all gave me a shot. And within a year of being at EXP, I opened up 6 streams of income. I surpassed 6 figures, and I wound up buying my first house. Right.
Look at you getting stuff done.
Yes.
And literally breaking records that we didn't know could be broken this hard at 1EXP, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
100%.
And, you know, sometimes it just happens in a way where I'm a person, and I think Jessica can probably relate to this, sitting in the leadership positions at 1EXP, we're always looking for those people who have that drive and that fire and the ability to do the work in a way that reflects that fire, right? And I mean, we have found a whole stable of people who can do that, but there is something different about you, Camryn. There just is something I can't put my finger on. And at EXPCon this last year, you know, this is really, really funny, but I have not stopped thinking about it since EXPCon. I'll tell you who said it later. I'm not going to reveal that on the podcast. But somebody said to me, you know, I see Camryn up on stage, and it's like you and Jessica had a kid. And I was like,
you're like, oh my God.
Not wrong, right? I don't know what to say, but you're not wrong. Like, I see so much of myself in you, and Jess feels the same way. And what we both see in you is different, because we see ourselves reflected, and we're pretty freaking different people. You know?
Yes. I will say the way, honestly, because I knew you before you even knew who I was, and I just seen the way that you impact people and the way that you connect with them. And I was like, oh my God, he doesn't know me, but he needs to know me. We need to get connected. Like, those are the principles I want to emulate, you know.
And listen, this is not like an exclusive, nobody's ever gonna have my care and support like Camryn does. This is we plan to pass this down and down and down, because what Camryn is describing of looking to me like that, I looked at Jessica and feel like that when I came in, right? So now our goal in life should be to find who is that person that looks at Cam like that.
Yeah.
Right? You
Absolutely.
know what I mean? And in this way, we continue the legacy of 1EXP with people that we know their passion makes things happen.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I always say the success that we've had falls directly in the reciprocity of who we impact. And so, especially at Pride Network, you know, those 10,000 people that are in there, 11,000 are just people that we've been able to positively impact. You know, it's really big that, you know, the more that you could problem solve and offset value, then the more people just want to be around you. I always say that we operate in frequencies, right? High level frequency people tend to be able to do things in half the time rather than low frequency people. So I recognize in those years of struggle, I was operating at a much lower frequency until I started hanging around people like you, Jessica, and a plethora of other people that operate just at a higher frequency. And I was like, oh my God, no, if I adapt to these energies, then I will in turn be able to offset the same kind of energy and value that you guys do.
You gave me chill bumps. I love that.
Absolutely. It's so real. Like
it's so real. And it's crazy, really, you know, like, for anybody watching this that thinking like, oh, well, Camryn's clearly Cody's favorite. You know what I mean? Like, I say that, we joke about that a lot, but legitimately, I couldn't even begin to name how many people at EXP who I feel have the same power that you do, right? You know what I mean? This 1EXP is really good at finding those powerful people. By the way, I'm going to make an announcement here, and I don't know if by the time this comes out, this has already been announced or not, but on Friday, January the 31st of 2025, which we are now in, which is weird, we will be hosting the 1EXP Awards in the Big Agent meeting.
Woo! I'm excited.
It's going to be so cool. So
Yes.
if you don't believe me that we've got so many people that are so good at so many things, wait and see how these 10 or 11 awards play out, right? Because we have such a diverse cast of characters that won these awards, or that got, if you take into account the runners up as well. It's such a wonderfully, beautifully diverse pool of people of different age brackets and tax brackets and genders and sexualities and religions. And I mean, it's really like, we touch a lot of really different people. You know what I mean?
No, that's
I
so
love
true.
that about 1EXP, and I can't wait for you guys to see this award ceremony as well, with a special guest interview after the award ceremony.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be good. So I want to talk a little bit before we get lost about your role as Vice President of NAREP OKC. So in that role, are there any like initiatives or pushes that you're super proud of in adding value to advocating for Hispanic homeownership?
Yes, absolutely. In NAREP OKC, National Hispanic Association Real Estate Professionals, we've done some pretty heavy lifting this year. So we had Senate Bill or HB 4152 or 4156. What that essentially did was it made it illegal. It made it anybody without documentation who got pulled over would like go straight to jail. And so what that did was it basically enhanced racial profiling. So now you could get pulled over because you looked Hispanic or you didn't look like you belonged here. And so we wound up getting with a few senators and the House of Representatives and issued a statement on the Senate floor. And what that did was it had them revise the verbiage of HB 4156 that got pushed into law. So now our Hispanic communities, because those people that were getting arrested are, in real estate terms, those are our contractors. Those are our people that are building our houses and doing the work that like none of us want to do. They are pivotal to keeping our system healthy and alive and running. And the verbiage that they had, it was just so cutthroat. And even police officers said that, yeah, I mean, in order to enforce that, we do have to racially profile you. And with them admitting so, they and us making that issued statement on the Senate floor, they revised that. And then Senate Bill 212, that one made it illegal to purchase real estate unless you were a bona fide resident of Oklahoma. And so that was also pretty scary because now, I mean, the point of that was to limit the growth of dispensaries being built in R1, R2 zonings, because we have that. A lot of dispensaries are just being built up here. And a lot of times they are from people that aren't from here, right? But they're not even people in Mexico. I mean, we're a day's trip from Mexico, and we have a huge Hispanic demographic here. So the initiation of that law really put a lot of fear into our Hispanic communities. And that had I not been in the position I am in NAREP OKC, I wouldn't have even known about this bill. I would have no idea. Even if I'm in real estate, it wasn't like it was being heavily publicized or anything. They were being very quiet about it. And so what we did was we sat with the House of Representatives and a couple of senators backed us up, and we actually got to revise the general affidavit that got pushed into law. And so now our Hispanic communities are no longer affected by that bill, as the intention and purpose of that was to prevent dispensaries, not people just trying to be homeowners. And so it's so important to have, lenders and people that, are aware of these things and how to navigate those that maybe need to find their documentation, or what can we do around that? How can we still get you a house without documentation? Well, we have creative financing, subject to, wraparound, novations. There are so many intricacies to real estate that you could bypass some of these things that they're trying to hold you back from doing. And so it's really important for us to advance sustainable homeownership with them. And as well as, just this year, we got to raise over $30,000 in sponsorships to advocate for the Hispanic communities. And additionally, for the first time ever, the state of Oklahoma now has bilingual contracts. We did not have that. And a lot of states don't. And the reason, and the reason being, and I had no idea about this, is that there is no lending language in Spanish. Like, it just doesn't exist. They don't have that language use in Spanish. So that's been the biggest hurdle was, well, how do we write a contract in Spanish when those words in Spanish don't even exist? What we did was we partnered with NAR and OAR, and we said, listen, if these people are going to make the biggest purchase of their life, the representation of your transaction can make or break the consumer experience. At the very least, we should have it in their language available. There is no reason we need to create this language barrier where we now have to translate this very big and enforceable contract that's going to tie them to probably the largest purchase that they've ever made.
If they don't understand the language of the contract.
Exactly. So that was huge. Those are just a couple of things that I'm very proud to be a part of in that.
That's really brilliant. I love that. So I'm wondering how you see the intersection of the work that you do, both for the queer community and for the Hispanic community. How do you see the intersection of all of that contributing to a broader impact on our industry?
Absolutely. There's so many things in common. I think that on both sides of the spectrum, there's fear in the unknown. There's fear in the lack of representation. Both of these communities are severely underrepresented. And like I just said, the consumer's experience, the consumer's experience will make or break how they feel about real estate, right? And so in a unified principle, it's about problem solving, right? Yeah. Right. If we can problem solve and educate ourselves and be not just allies, but true advocates taking action in the community, in both communities, then essentially we can make a broader impact on both. So I've really just focused on adding value, creating an offset, like an environment where people can also learn from. When you attend our events, you attend our meetings, I want you to get a piece of information. So when you serve the general public, you now have relationships that you can use, and you also have information to delegate and also educate people on, especially on the experience, whether it's queer migration or it's people without documentation who want to buy a house but can't qualify through a conventional loan.
Yeah.
Things like that. Yeah.
Brilliant. And, I think, I would go so far as to say in America, at least, we're talking to a global company, but in America, both communities, the native Spanish speaker, the Hispanic community, and the queer community are communities that, even though there is a part of the zeitgeist that would trod upon those people and hold them down, if either community were to disappear from America, our country would cease to function.
It's so true. It's so true. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm going to skip a little bit forward and talk about the future and legacy and that sort of thing. So what are your goals for Pride Network in 2025 and beyond?
2025, I definitely... I think 2024 was the running start, building the foundation. We've got a broader audience. 2025, it's going to be about scaling on impact, engagement. Out of the existing 11,000, how do we get those 11,000 to really, really advocate in their local sector? Because that's where the greatest impact starts. It starts at the local sector. Same thing with NARREP, how did we make an impact? We went to our local legislation. Right. And so if we can get those 11,000 existing members as we continue to scale, my goal is 20,000 before EXPCon next year, which I think naturally we're going to hit. We're only a few weeks into the new year and we're up 1,000. So I would imagine that will naturally grow into 20,000 before next year. But as we continue to grow and scale, I want to create more opportunities for people, more stage time for people, more platforms, podcasts, masterminds, ways that we can educate, serve, guide, motivate, and inspire people. The more opportunities that we can create for those, I think, is essentially what's going to be the backbone of how we can help. And so, I think that this last year, we learned a lot, we did a lot, but it's time to scale it. It's time to scale what we've done and go bigger and go better. And that is essentially because we've already went through the first year, it's going to be faster. Right. And I'm actually I'm really excited to really dive into the nitty gritty of making this such a powerful community. So 2025 and beyond, I'm just excited to be here and continue to scale and grow it. And I think that we will be unrecognizable by EXPCon 2025.
That's amazing. And it's a real goal of mine, particularly as it relates to CultureCast, this lovely show that we're on episode 40 of now. I hope that anybody listening hears your passion and your fire and also your ability to get it done and keep a smile on your face and feels inspired, right? If one person thinks, I'm going to bottle any piece of what you're bringing to the table and bring it to the table myself, then we've succeeded as a program, right?
100%.
That's what I believe.
And I think vulnerability is so important. That's why, I've said some of the things that I have, because I feel like that pain and those things that we go through can either make us bitter or they can make us grow from it. And I think for me, that pain has made me more human, and it's made me more empathetic, and it's made me more knowledgeable, and the ability to connect with people now, going through those things that I've been through and coming out and seeing the other side of it. Now I have almost like a superpower now. I don't regret some of those things that I've been through. I'm actually happy that they happened, just because of the things I wouldn't have met you if I didn't go through the things that I did, if I didn't, and all that comes from at least betting on yourself too. I couldn't be more grateful that through the trials and tribulations that they say it's temporary defeat until accepted as permanent failure. I'll tell you what, it's only temporary defeat. I'm just getting started,
That's it. Yeah. I mean, we all stumble, but it really is that ability to pick yourself back up, learn from that, and move forward that gets us where we are today. I feel exactly the same way. There's a lot of stuff in my life that if you take away all of the thoughts of how it's going to impact the future, that yes, I would change. I wouldn't date this person. I wouldn't date that person. I would be not so extra in college. I would have chosen a different degree, all those things. But if I change any of those things, any of those little pieces wouldn't have led me to right here. And there's nowhere in the world I'd rather be.
100%. And I think it's so easy, for those that watch us, when they see us at our best moments and shining and oh my God, Pride Network's doing amazing. Cody's doing all these great things. We're still human. We still have bad days.
Yeah.
Right.
Listen, what I'm telling you is I'm no saint, I'm no angel, and I mess up a lot more than I succeed. But we got here, right? So
exactly.
Don't think you have to be perfect. Don't think you can't mess up. That's when people watch me type, they see that I type really, 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 really fast. If you break down those keystrokes, 40% of my keystrokes are backspace. Right. You know what I mean?
It's so true.
But I can be fast while making those mistakes and correcting them as I go. That's
the ability to
fail. Cool thing to be able to do, right?
100%. Yes.
Oh gosh. So something that I'm gonna share with you. This is kind of new information for everybody, I think. But this year, we are debuting an all-new award at the One EXP Awards. It's something that Cheska and I and Wendy and Renee and Donald and I have thought about pretty sincerely leading up to this, but it's something that's been in my mind for a really long time. And that is, how do we recognize the legacy of someone who has done all it is that they can do and stepped away? Right. We have a legion of past leaders that created what we are in today. And this year, we created this award because there's somebody that deserves recognition for it. And now it's going to last forever. But it was that one person's effort and passion and stick with itness that made us think we need to recognize this person's legacy of impact. So we have a new award that's not exactly a lifetime achievement, but we're not voting on this award. We at the top of the house see what you did for this. And even if you're not with us anymore, we love you, right? That's what we're saying with that award. I say all of this to circle back around to a question. When it gets to that point in your career where we're looking back on Camryn's legacy at EXP or at the Pride Network, what is it you want people to remember?
I think for me, I want to be remembered as the girl that believed in them. I want to just help people achieve and reach that next level, whether it's in transactions or it's in Pride Network or anything that I do. I'm always looking at what they say, the PPFs. I'm looking at your personal, professional, and financial goals, and what can I do to elevate you forward? What can I do to push the needle forward and to get you where you want to be? I just want to be a bridge to a relationship, a bridge to the next level. I'm going to give it everything that I got. And honestly, the only thing that I want is them to remember, hey, that girl helped me out. She was pretty cool. You know what I mean?
When we were putting up this award, I asked the question to myself, what do I want my legacy to be? And I thought, I'm going to have to really think about this and ask some people. But the answer came to me a second after thinking the question. I just hope people remember me as someone who made them feel seen.
Yes, that's so true. It's
right?
So true and powerful.
In my job, that there's no better duty that I can serve, right?
No. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's why we have CultureCast,
That's so true. Yes.
Yeah, it's why we have these 1EXP awards. It's why we did the 1EXP lounge at EXPCon. I want to give everybody that wants a chance to hold the mic, the chance to hold the mic.
Yeah, it's so powerful.
That's inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
That's
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to finish it up with the final question. If you've ever seen CultureCast, we ask the same last question to everybody that's on this show. Somebody's brand new at EXP today, and they say, Camryn, what do I do? What's the one piece of advice you give them?
I would say, like we said before, authenticity is the highest form of currency you will ever be able to render, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, especially coming into this company, we feel so small in a company that's so big. I need you to think bigger. Challenge yourself to think bigger, think better. If you have a goal, 10x it. And don't ask yourself how, ask yourself who. Who do I have to be in order to attain the goals that I'm trying to attain? Not how. Ask yourself who, and those things will come to you naturally. Remember, the difference between a contact and a contract is the R, and the R stands for the relationships that you build. So the more hands you shake, the more money you make. So focus on problem solving, pushing the needle forward, think bigger, get connected with people, because synergy is how you're going to get there. So think bigger, think better, be unapologetically yourself, and just get connected. Jump in and be fearless in the pursuit of being yourself.
This answer makes me so happy because it's so you. And you're also the first person who's answered that question that I want to genuinely ask. When is your book coming out?
One of these days we'll have to put something together, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, that was all of that hit me. You could I can't hide my emotions on my face. The whole time you were talking, it's like, yeah, yeah, that part. Yes. Oh. Yeah, I love that. I loved all of that.
Thank you so much for having me too. This has been so much fun. I love getting to chit chat with you.
Yeah, we always have a good time. It's always an easy episode when it's somebody that I really deeply care about, and I do care about you a lot, Camryn. You know that. So we will see you next time on the CultureCast, and I'm hoping that you guys will check out the wonderful 1EXP awards that are coming to the Big Agent meeting on the 31st. Come join us. Until then, this has been another episode of CultureCast.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of 1EXP CultureCast. If you would like to be featured on an upcoming episode or have someone in mind that you'd like us to invite, please contact us at dei@exprealty.net. If you have time, please be sure to scan the QR code on screen now to leave us a review on Glassdoor.